Hello and welcome to the Home Assistant Podcast. My name is Rowan Karamandy, and usual we have Phil. Hey, Phil.
Hey, Rohan, how's it going?
Good. And today we have Danny. Danny, how's it going?
Great. How are you?
Can't complain. Still waking up, but you know, it's the usuals. This episode is sponsored by Home Assistant Cloud by Nabukasa. Easily access your local Home Assistant instance remotely for a small monthly fee that supports the Home Assistant and ESPHome projects. Configuration's done by the user interface, so there's no fiddling with router settings, SSL certificates, or any other YAML.
That is the best one you've done live, and you are so tired. I love it.
And I'm not even awake.
Gotta
love it.
Danny, welcome to the podcast. I guess we're trying to triangulate time zones today. Where in the world are you from?
So I'm based in the UK, just above London in Hertfordshire.
So yeah, 3 time zones, 3 continents, I guess.
That's right.
Yeah, UK is one of I think UK and New Zealand are probably the hardest time zones we've had on the podcast so far. So I'm glad we've been able to get this one to work.
It's not possible. We're in the middle of you two, so.
Well, yeah, but then I've got to be at night. Rohan's got to be at the morning, or vice versa, and
yeah. And you're awake, so it's one's waking up, the other one's falling asleep, and
midday for me, so it's great.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right.
So, all right. So, Home Assistant. Maybe let's just start how you got onto your home automation journey and how you then got onto Home Assistant.
Yeah, so I've been into technology for a long time, and I remember the days of the X10, and I was
Everyone
what,
talks
9,
about
10.
X10.
Yeah,
Everyone.
it was great.
Yeah,
It's the only thing that was around at the time, you know.
Yeah.
So I remember those days, but I was probably not even a teenager then, and kind of went to school, did all that stuff, and then for me it was all the different platforms, systems, and all that sort of stuff. I just want to tie it all together, and that's when my friend suggested looking at Home Assistant, and kind of I slightly looked back and looked at OpenHAB at the time, but kind of gave that a skip and carried on with Home Assistant. I'm glad I did.
Yeah, that's so. X10. Did you sort of integrate that with any computers? Like, 'cause I remember you had to get like a special, like a CM15 module or something like that to plug into USB, and then use some very like specific Windows program to ever interface that protocol. Did you ever like do anything fancy with X10, or just?
No, it was the X10 stuff was more. I've seen it. I was reading into it, but I didn't have my own house because I was still at my parents' place,
right.
And it was the technology that was there was like looked pretty cool, but that was the only thing I kind of remembered in terms of home automation. Back then. I think what kicked it all off again though was probably all the smart speakers and stuff like that, because I think when that all started popping up, loads of things were coming out with we work with Google or like Alexas and stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So like it was really the facet that there's a lot of these devices coming out and stuff happening there where you're like, that's kind of cool. I want to do that.
Yeah, and I remember back when I was in my childhood, it's like I remember X10 and just thinking about what I could do with that, but not actually having the money to do it and my own place. And then now I'm more grown up, sort of thing. Then with all of this stuff coming on the scene, it's like, I just remember my phone and it's just looking through the homepage, it's just like littered with loads of different apps. I'm like, this is crazy.
How far we've come, right?
Exactly.
So, all right. So you've gone from X10. You're wanting to get into home automation. I remember I had, my first X10 when I just wanted to turn some speakers on and some lights on my TV, and I had an X10 IR blaster. And that thing was like, considering like technology today, it's amazing how far we've come from like just the X10. It was slow. You had to be plugged in, wired. What made you, like, I know you said you had like, just speakers and stuff. Was there anything in particular that you wanted to do once you saw like, or something that sort of tweaked in your mind saying, hey, now that these speakers are sort of integrated, I could do this, I could do that. Like, is there anything that you wanted to go with?
It started off with lights first. So I had, I started off with LifeX first and then trying to hook things up into things like motion sensors and stuff like that. It's common things you see in the office. Like, why would you not have that at home if it's in the office? It's kind of, I always think of technology at home is usually better than the stuff you have at work. So it's like trying to I'm more of a let's get stuff working and then look at the pretty stuff like the graphs, the charts, and dashboards later. And so start off with that, and it was LifeX. I had a LifeX, then I had Hue as well for the motion stuff, and it came. I got that for my birthday, and then it came with a bulb, and it's just like, oh, now I've got 2 different sets of branded bulbs.
Yes.
Along with a hub, and one's Wi-Fi, one's Zigbee. I was just thinking, this is crazy that there's nothing I could use the 2 together kind of thing.
So were you able to then use like Home Assistant to bridge like the Hue motion sensors into LifeX?
Exactly. So using Home Assistant, I was looking for a platform and my friend said, I've seen this thing called Home Assistant.
Right.
The funny thing is like he hadn't even used it or tried it. He was just, have a look at this thing. I was like, okay, I'll give it a go.
Yeah.
And then, tried it out, installed it and got it working. And it just went from there. And now I've got like over 1,000 entities in my Home Assistant.
And now you're on the Home Assistant podcast talking about it too, right?
That's right.
Yeah, which is amazing. Yeah.
So you've got Philips Hue, LifeX. Are these still in your home, or have you sort of migrated away to one sort of ecosystem, or are you still using a mishmash?
Still using a mishmash. So spanning from that, and I've added smart things into that mix, as well as the Nest stuff that's come in, the Ring. There's so many different things now. It's like, but then it's got to the point where it's like, I don't care as long as it works with Home Assistant, and literally everything now, even if I want to replace like the fridge freezer or something like that, it's like, does it work with Home Assistant? No, I'm not looking at that.
Yeah. So is it kind of just like what's cheapest, or is it like what you like? How do you select your product? Is it by features, by price, or kind of all of the above, or what?
I like to keep it to one ecosystem as I can. So I think SmartThings has quite a lot of plethora of like sensors and stuff. Like I'm a huge fan of their multi-purpose sensors because it does contact, temperature, accelerometer, and that's great. But I'm willing to pay a little bit more if it means that it's all in one device. But otherwise, whatever's compatible, and then base it on there's partly like the form factor, the almost like the Wi-Fi acceptance factor as well, or if it's the price. As long as it meets what I need, if I pay a little bit more, would I use it? And then I'll get that.
Would you have a favorite protocol that you've got in your house? Like if you could choose one over the other, like do you like prefer, if there's 2 competing devices and you go, all right, I prefer to get it on this frequency or this sort of brand, is there one that you would go for?
Yeah, so Zigbee is my preferred choice. I think it's been the least hassle that I've had. I mean, so I've got, I'm using the Unify networking stuff, and it's been great up to a point, but there's just this weird bugs and stuff. I've even got a case open for them at the moment where randomly devices will be dropping out. It's just getting to a point where it's like, oh, can I just replace LifeX with, say, like Hue, or even the IKEA stuff now are pretty good as well. So
yeah,
but yeah, Zigbee's my preferred one.
I think Zigbee. It's a funny one. I think Philips Hue sort of started the whole mainstreaming of Zigbee for a lot of companies. And IKEA comes out with trad free. Now you've got Amazon with their Echo devices, including Zigbee in there. So I think Zigbee makes a lot of sense. I've always been a big firm believer in Z-Wave, just because Z-Wave had the right. Every device, no matter what manufacturer it is has to use a certain way of communicating. So it doesn't matter if you're changing brands, whereas Zigbee didn't have that, and it still doesn't. Even today, ZHA, Zigbee to MQTs, struggle with having to implement, blinds from one manufacturer in a different way to another manufacturer. So,
but problem is you also have to deal with like a lot of different pieces within the Zigbee protocol, right? Like, so for example, Phil, I know you guys have some trouble sometimes with Australia with getting...
No, that's Z-Wave.
Z-Wave. Okay, so...
Yeah, because they have frequencies. Yeah.
Okay, well then, in that case, that sucks.
Yeah. But Matter, I think as we're recording this, Matter has just reached version 1.0. So that's going to be solving a lot of problems there.
Is it?
Where do you stand on? Yeah, I was going to say, where do you both stand on the whole Matter thing?
Go, Rohan.
Go ahead.
I've talked enough.
I honestly, I don't know where I stand on it, right? I don't know if there's enough. So it is based on Zigbee and stuff, which is cool. But how much of those flaws of Zigbee does it inherit, right? Like, so in the sense, like, are we talking like, again, do we still have sprawl of within the protocol? So for example, does that mean I'm saying, like, again, like Phil said, this blind works this way, that blind works another way, because that's just how the manufacturer chose to build it, right? Whereas
I'm pretty sure
Z-Wave
Matter
has a
was
lot
supposed
stricter.
to address it that way.
I'm sure Zigbee was at some point too, right? And
Yeah.
I think therein lies the problem, right? Is we're just throwing more protocols at stuff and saying, hey, are we going to solve it? Again, I'm not saying that's what Matter is. Am I excited for Matter? Yeah, but I'm also cautiously optimistic, if you want to call it that, right?
The cynic in me always asks, why are these companies that are generally competitors in every way and cutthroat competitors, some of them, why are they happy to join forces to create this protocol all of a sudden when it's sort of benefited them for so many years to create their own silos and walled gardens? I don't know why. Trust me, I love that they've done it. I think it's going to make the fragmented system that is home automation so much better. If there is no hidden gotcha in there somewhere.
I think that's the time will tell part, right?
Yeah.
Version 1, people complaining about, it doesn't support things like cameras or something like that. It's like, give them a chance.
Yep.
But at the same time, it's still, everyone's got this bought into this ecosystem already, and it's going to take time for it to migrate over. But it's also, I'm also quietly curious about how they're going to solve the problems that Rohan highlighted as well. It'll be interesting to see how manufacturers take to that.
Yeah. It's still a loose requirement, right? Problem with open source is it's open to interpretation, right? I think I've said this a few times on the episode, as much as I am a very big advocate for open source, again, hence we're even on the Home Assistant podcast, which is an open source product, right? That's open source done well, I think personally, but doesn't always end up that way, right?
Yeah, interesting. Well, I'm looking forward to. I think Home Assistant Yellow is going to get Matter, so that's good. And I like that there's the ability for devices to get over-the-air updates and enable that. So I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Can't wait. So protocols. What is your favorite automation that you've got in your house right today?
Today, I think I still say it's the lights, because I have a very understanding wife, which is great, because none of this stuff goes wrong. And it's just like anything that's got, it's not even programming, but like, if you put it that way, there's so many scenarios and stuff like that. And it's just like, why is this light turned on? I was like, let me have a look at that. Yeah. But there was a point, I think it was last year, she was like, you know what? I haven't had to touch a switch downstairs in the house for months, or the last time I could remember, kind of thing. I was like, yes, that to me is where it's what you actually working.
That's perfect.
And it's also weird that she brought that up as well and noticed it. So again, it's great that she hasn't noticed it until, I don't know what she was thinking at the time. But I think that to me was the key point. It's like, actually, if you now got rid of that, would you even think about doing it? But it does open up another question of, we've got 2 kids, and it's, back in my day, my parents would be like, don't forget to turn off the lights, shut the door and all that sort of stuff. But now it's like, they don't even think about that stuff. So if they go to, say, someone's house or something like that, would they be seen as kind of rude type thing because they're not doing it?
You just yell at them for good measure, just so they have that experience of being a child of turn off the lights. But Dad, it turns it off by itself. Oh yeah, good point. Sorry.
Or just randomly turn off automation so it doesn't do
that's
that.
Right.
No, I think that's why I love the light automation, just to be able to turn lights off. Like I think, yes, I like walking into a room and the lights turn on. Like I get a buzz from that every time that happens. But I think when I see a room that has lights left on, it frustrates me so much, just because I think of wasted energy. No one's in the room for it to be lit up. I think the automation for me is really powerful in turning the lights off when no one's in there.
I'd say probably my most liked one, rather than favorite, is so I've got a set of bed sensors that I put in, and they're using these like flexible kind of resistive film kind of thing.
Okay.
And I put them on the bed slats, and
Right.
because I think I bought one of those like analog to digital converters that could take 4 of them. So I put them like top of the bed, bottom bed, left and right. At the time, I was using the ESP8266 for that, and using Tasmoda for the firmware, and it worked so well because it got to the point where it was like, I don't know, working from home, I'll just take a nap, get in bed, blinds come down, go to bed, could trigger like an alarm, so like wake up in like 10, 20 minutes, whatever it was. And then when you get out of bed as well, blinds come up, turn off the alarm because he knows you're out of bed, and then you can just go back to work kind of thing. And then that applies to so many other things as well. So
That's funny.
That to me is like the pinnacle of what I've done in the house.
That's amazing. For Danny's boss that's listening now,
Yeah.
you know exactly his secret of how he got through the day.
When he doesn't answer those Slack messages for 10 minutes, that's what's happening.
That's right.
So I've always wondered with the bed sensors though, like what happens when you put something like on the bed, like, washing or anything that's heavy on the bed? Does it recognize does it think there's someone laying in the bed? Like, and has that ever been an issue? Or is it smart enough to know it's a light load, it's not a person, or it's an animal or something? Don't trigger that.
No, it's not. And there's other. So I've actually moved from Tasmoda, to ESPHome as well, since that kind of got more popular. And I found, I don't know, I can't explain it, but I think the Tasmoda seems to be more accurate, even though it's just given arbitrary values compared to ESPHome, which uses voltage to kind of sense how what's on it. But there's different things. There's like if you put a load of washing on in a basket or something like that, because I've got 2 on each side of the bed at the top and bottom, it's quite unlikely that you'll get both sensors of a human weight kind of thing, unless you have something heavy on, maybe like a suitcase or something.
Yeah,
right.
So that's pretty good. And then the other thing is like if say like a kid jumps on your bed or something like that, that's only momentary and they move about and stuff as well. Whereas when you're sleeping, you could almost add like a wait for X amount, like a minute or 2 minutes or something like that too, to kind of offset that.
Interesting. I've actually tried making these before. Like I have all the pieces for it and everything, and for whatever reason, I think maybe I just got a dud of like the analog to digital converter, and no matter what, I just could not get it to read the values of it. Like it just wasn't even detecting them. And so it's interesting that you kind of ran through Tasmoda and then ESPHome, and then now you're kind of saying maybe Tasmoda was better. Or not better, but like, I guess better. It's more accurate. It's kind of what you want. So it's there's no sugarcoating it there, right?
No, but I think also at the time, the Tasmoda only supported the ESP8266, and then I moved on to ESP32 chips, and they didn't support it at the time as well. So that's why I kind of moved. I wanted everything in the same ecosystem to manage it. So
makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know whether it, like you said, I don't know if it's better or not, because it's the same hardware. It's just reading the values differently. And ever since then as well, it sounds really stupid, but like the mattress you put on the slats, it's actually uneven weight, because when you're changing the bed sheets or something like that, it could be shifted to the left or the right, and then that might also put the sensor off kilter. And I think this is where I need to explore some of I think they're called filters for the ESPHome stuff, to try and filter some of that out, or like average it out or something along those lines.
Right. So you want it within kind of this rough range, right? Like,
it's not even that, because if you think the mattress is pressing on one sensor for a period of time, you could just see the graph kind of stay high, thinking someone's lying in it. But actually, you want it to be more, if it's sustained amount, let's say it's reading like 2 volts, for example, and it's normally at 0. Well, if the mattress shifted a bit, or you change the sheets and it's done that, you want to say actually reset that back to 0, or only when it goes up beyond the two.
Right.
Yeah. So you want to
like
sort of
that-
like
that
tear
difference.
it at some point and say, right, this is your new
Yeah.
base level now.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah.
I wonder if
I think some of there must be some filters for that, but I'm haven't looked into all of there's so many different types as well, and I'm trying to figure out which one's the best.
Could you do that in Home Assistant? Like if Home Assistant is getting those raw voltage numbers, I don't know if it is. I'm just saying if it is, could you then in Home Assistant have an automation say, okay, like you could have a button, say press this, reset it, and then you could just set like a hidden variable somewhere, like an input text or something, and say, all right, this is your new base 0, and then your automation will be based on that value. You know, if it's gone above this value of this entity, then it's got someone on it.
Yeah, you could there's probably helpers that will help you, like things like the min max or the statistics stuff. But I think the ESPHome filters actually have more scientific ones like Bayesian and deltas and stuff like that.
Right.
So I think those would be more powerful, and then the calculation of it will just feed into Home Assistant rather than Home Assistant trying to take a value and then calculate it.
Yeah. And you're kind of better. It's a little more efficient doing it off Home Assistant too, right? You just kind of split the load a little bit in terms of just computation of who's doing what. But interesting. So, and you said you used the strip-like sensors, not because the ones I got were like the little square ones, like with the
they're like the weight kind of thing. The H Weybridge, I think, or H bridge or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
So this is where like Lewis from Everything Smart Home kind of went through all of those types of sensors, and it's very interesting how he went through it. But the strip sensors work best for me. I also bought some of those, but the legs of the my bed is kind of like a rectangular shape, so I would have to build a platform
right
for the bed or the weight sensor to go on top of, and
right.
It's also then you had to have wires in all four corners of your bed. Whereas for these, I could put them on any slats, so I could do it to like top of my torso to the middle of my torso, and then I could do the same for my kind of wife's side. But you know, because we're different heights as well, you can then move it from up or down the slats as well, as opposed to using the posts of the bed. So yeah, it's literally just stuck down with tape, and you could just move it if you really wanted to.
Yeah, and yet some of those things can be the most rock solid thing in your smart home. It's funny.
Duct tape it all.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Have you done anything else with like ESP devices or Tesmoda around your house apart from just a bed sensor?
I've played with the ES Presence stuff. It's okay until I found out like what actually supports iBeacon, because to me it's very much like the whole HDMI or the USB-C specs kind of stuff. It's like, it's got Bluetooth, so it must support it. But actually, if you're actually looking at specific iBeacons, only certain devices support it.
Yeah.
And the thing that was a killer for me was that I use a Garmin watch and that doesn't support it. I'm like, but that's literally on me all the time.
Yeah.
So that was really annoying. But yeah, so ESP Presence was one thing I've done. And then the other stuff, I bought one of those, they call them E-tape, but they're kind of like a similar thing with the resistor stuff, but it's for moisture. So I've got a water tank in the loft, and maybe the ball cock valve maybe gets stuck once a year. And I know the ideal solution would be, why don't you just replace it? But I thought, I don't know, why don't I just stick this in? It's got like a open-ended tube with the tape in the middle. You stick it in, and then depending on the level of the water would depend again on the resistance side type of thing. So I stuck one of theirs on a kind of battery pack, again, taped around one of the loft beams just to see I could get the readings and stuff like that. I mean, whilst I was there, I thought, I'll stick a environment sensor like the BME 680, and it then did like temperature, humidity, and all that sort of stuff. And so that was pretty cool, and it works. And I just got like to measure out the voltage, I just got a bucket of water and just dipped it in, and it's got markings of how high it is up to like, it's like a 30 centimeter long stick that you had. And that was pretty cool. But it's kind of come down. Well, it's not in there anymore because of running off the battery pack, reporting every minute. It maybe lasted like a day on a battery.
Right.
Yeah. And although it's got electrics, as in it's got lighting in there, it doesn't have a socket or anything. So I'll probably revisit that and maybe send Yeah, and so I think I'll redo that again, but maybe do a reading on every 10 minutes or every half an hour or something like that, because
Right.
I don't need it that often. And then ESP stuff. No, I think those are the kind of two things. I've now literally put it on every single bed as well. So all the children's bed are in there, so they can't claim they were pretending to be asleep when they're actually playing.
I mean, they still can. They just play on their bed.
Yeah, get the iPad out, away they go.
Right. I love that you could have, like, even for going back to the previous thing with the tank there, right? It's like there's a very easy fix, or I could just over engineer the crap out of this.
Yeah.
and as with any good home automation person, that's the route you took.
Pretty much. I think we had someone up there fixing something, and they were like, "What's this?" I was like, "Don't worry, it's nothing nefarious. Just ignore it."
That's so funny. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just wires coming out of a tank, nothing to worry about.
Yeah, it was. We were actually getting our boiler fixed at the time, and he was doing something with the central heating. So I was just like, "What is that?" I was like, just leave it alone."
So it was actually telling you how much water was in that tank, like to that level, or?
Yeah, so it's a 30 centimeter long kind of sheet that was then covered in an open-ended tube. So you can then stick the tube in the water, and then you've got the wires at the top. And the wires is what you then you power and read off of that to see. Yep. It's very similar to like those bed sensors, except it's just with
water.
I think it does it the opposite way. So it's with water, it's more conductive. So then you can get more voltage out of it. And then so it's pretty cool. I think I got it off like I can't remember what the site was called, but I remember that the product was called E-Tape. I don't know why, but yeah. I can send you the link later on.
Yeah, I'll have a look. That'd be good. How do you getting that information into home? Was that through ESPHome, or were you using something like MQTT?
No, ESPHome. Nice. Same with the bed sensor. They just read it, and then it goes through the ESPHome integration, and it's all there.
The API.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Have you looked at turning on the new Bluetooth proxy features on those?
Yes, I have, but I can't tell whether it's working or not. Because I've got a couple of those. Is it the My Flora?
Yeah,
Flora.
Yeah. I've got a couple of those, and I configured it in one ESPHome that's near the flowers themselves.
Yeah,
but I can't tell you whether that's through proxy or not, or anything like that.
Yeah. I'm sure. Honestly, it works really well. So the flower pot right here has like the one right behind me there. It's got a ESP home Bluetooth proxy based My Flora sensor in there too, right? And literally pop the battery and it just shows up in dashboard. It's really cool.
You didn't even have to configure it or any apart from add it in as an integration.
Yeah, like it goes like new device discovered, right? And then you click continue or whatever, and then go on. But yeah, I didn't have to do anything. It just saw it and it showed up in the integrations pane.
Are you using an ESPHome? Sorry, an ESP32 as a like Bluetooth proxy into Home Assistant now?
Yep.
To get that, because I know your server's like far away or something, so you wouldn't have.
Which is great, and it's an actual server, right? So like I've got like a couple of USB ports in there, which I have with like my Zigbee stick in there, and so on and so forth. But yeah, no, it's just there's an ESPHome there's an ESP32 in my closet that I've had there actually for the My Flora sensor. So I actually just took it out the other day and removed all of My Flora logic and put the BLE logic in there, and it works great. The proxy logic, it's fantastic. I've got another one behind my bed as well. So kind of one for this side of the house, one for that side of the house, because coverage.
Yeah. And Bluetooth doesn't have the best coverage anyway, so.
No, exactly. So, but so the ones on the sensors on that side of the house pick up over there, and the ones on this side of the house pick up in the closet. So it's great.
Yeah, we should try that because remove because the ESPHome, I've got it set up with was it the platform, whatever it was with the Mi Flora. So I'll probably, if I remove that, then probably show up then.
Yeah. Only thing is you don't get battery anymore, which I mean, I'll know when it stops showing up. I'll know that it's dead. But yeah. So, but that's exciting. So, so I know you talked about like earlier. You mentioned your wife was kind of saying like, hey, like I haven't really touched a light switch in like a year. It's kind of cool. How do you drive a lot of that stuff then? Is it just straight automation and voice, tablets? What do you do? Presence?
It's literally presence. I think the whole, although the voice assistant stuff was cool and started off this journey of like, actually now they can bring stuff into that. You could use the voice to trigger it. I've literally got to a point where now they're almost like just room speakers for if you want to play music around the house, and that's it. We don't use voice to really do anything unless it's overriding something. And then same with the app as well. Like she only has Home Assistant apps, so she doesn't have to install like the billions of apps to control them, which is great. But even then, the app's on there, but she rarely goes in unless something goes wrong or something is not working the way she wants it to. So all of that's done through things like motion sensors or the network integration to see whether we're home or not. I've also set up things like Frigate as well, so we can detect whether there's a car coming or there's a person and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Delivery man, maybe?
Those sorts of things. So we honestly, I think that to me, that's my end goal is like, I think I put on my GitHub page of like, my automation journey isn't finished until someone or something can wash my clothes and fold it and put it away. Because that to me is automation.
What cameras are you using? And like, are you using like a special NVR to get all that into Frigate? Or is it straight from the RTSP stream of a random camera into device?
So they're using, I've got a couple of FOSS cams, recently bought a Reolink, and I think one that's not integrated is the Ring camera. So again, another mishmash of brands and devices, and they all go through to, I use Frigate NVR, so that you stand up as your own server and it kind of talks about through RTSP, and then they also integrate to Home Assistant as just the feed as well. But the Frigate stuff has its own integration that will alert you when it detects something. You can even do things like a cat or a dog or, a motorbike and stuff like that.
Interesting. Yeah, because I don't think the Ring, like I've got a Ring video doorbell and like it's locked down. There's no getting the RTSP stream from that camera into Home Assistant easily, right? It's so frustrating.
No, for that one, I think it only captures when it detects motion or when someone presses the doorbell.
Yeah.
So what I do, so what I do is then I send that clip to, I think it's a deep stack, so that's another thing, another object detection, and then it then sends the results back, and then when it detects something, it will pop an alert onto the app if we're not home, say.
That's interesting. So because I used to have an automation set up whenever the Ring, would capture a new video, Home Assistant would download it and then save it on my NAS for long term. So once my 30-day storage and Ring run out, I'd still have the video. But I didn't realize you could then send that video off to somewhere else to get integrated, like to get analyzed. So that might be an interesting use case, because I've just put up another camera in the backyard, but unfortunately it's a solar powered Reolink camera. I don't think there's any RTSP stream for that. There is a library on GitHub I'm looking at the moment called Neo. What is it? Reolink, so Neolink, and that has a sort of backwards engineered whole bunch of the proprietary stuff of Reolink cameras. I'm hoping I can get the Argus 2 cameras that I have somehow compatibility with Home Assistant. That would be nice, but I'm not holding my breath. I might have to just invest in powered cameras out there.
Is that custom firmware, Phil, or is it it's like a separate piece of like a Docker container or something that you run?
Yeah, it's like you can run it as a Docker container, and it apparently allows, like, it would then know how to connect into the cameras using their specific rear link protocols and reverse engineer it. So essentially what's happening is I think the developers using things like Wireshark to work out how those cameras are communicating with the rear link servers up in AWS and then trying to mimic the same thing and then just pulling out the stream.
Right. Okay.
But I haven't, I'm still very early days of researching, unfortunately, and I'm not confident that it's going to work out too well for me.
Yeah.
Did you not check that before you buy it?
Well, yeah, I got a bit gung-ho. I got a bit trigger-happy on the Amazon.
I love that he just fully called you out right now.
I know, right? I was like, a solar-powered camera. Yes, I need that. Oh, rear link works with Home Assistant. No worries. Oh, and then, of course, you get it installed. You go to get the app working, and then it's a solar-powered camera. There's no live viewing. Yeah, I'm stuffed here. So, and of course, it was from China, from AliExpress. I'm not going to bother trying to send that back as a return, right?
Yeah. Were they expensive?
So not at the time. I don't think so. Maybe like $100 or something. It's pretty cheap for. I could be completely wrong, but yeah, I don't think it was. It wasn't enough money for me to want to take it back. Essentially.
Is that 100 like Australian dollars?
Yeah, so that's probably what, like £10 for you or something like that.
I don't know. With what's going around the pound at the moment, I'm still trying to work it out.
Although the pound is going pretty crazy at the moment, so whatever we say by the end of the podcast could be different.
That's right.
We'll see what the new Chancellor does anyway. So. I think probably the only other field I want to go through is like recently got solar panels installed at the house, and so it's one of those things I've been eyeing up for ages and ages, and then finally got enough money to kind of save up and put that down, and it's been amazing. So we've got solar panels and battery and stuff, and I think one of the things I actually tweeted this week about was the energy dashboard is great, but it's like almost like an hour behind kind of thing because it kind of collects that data up. So looking at a couple of people's posts and stuff like that, it's like, you can just make your own kind of live dashboard. So ended up doing something like that. And there's a guy called Mark Brunty, or I think he's called Brunty on Twitter, and he had a couple of dashboards for his energy stuff. So taking that as inspiration, and it's created something that's it's definitely not mobile friendly, but at least you can see kind of like when the solar kicks in versus when the battery it does and all of that sort of stuff. And using the Apex charts cards, you can then get like night and day
nice.
labels and stuff like that. So it's been really cool that yes, out of the box here's what you've got for tracking your energy usage, but then you can then build your own stuff to suit you as well, and it's quite flexible enough for you to then use that to say like, actually, can I literally now living by that chart to say, can I turn the dishwasher on now, or like the washing machine, and that's sort of
interesting.
thing.
That was going to be sort of alluding to my next question. So you've got solar panels. Are you doing any automations based on, when you're generating more power than you're consuming from the grid? Have you thought about going down to that level yet?
Yes. So quite a few of our appliances are still, it's relatively old, like maybe 5 to 10 years old. So they're quite dumb. But I've only got as far as to say, right, your batteries, as a notification, your battery's charged to say 85% and it's due to be finished charging in the next hour, let's say. So at least that's a kick for, you might want to turn something on like the dishwasher, washing machine on to use up some of the excess. And I've created a script where it's clever enough to know who's at home using the present stuff to say only send the notification to people at home, because if you're not there, what are you going to do, kind of thing. Right. But ideally, I would like to get to a point where if I had the appliances that were smart, then it could turn those on and off. But kind of like your solar camera, it's a bit hard to know, okay, so if I replace an appliance like a dishwasher, washing machine, what are the capabilities of that, even if it does work with Home Assistant? Because it doesn't mean that they can actually start a cycle or something like that either.
Exactly, yeah. Or there's a risk of, firmware update coming out in 6 months for a security issue and you lose that access, right?
And bricking it,
Yeah, that's true. So I haven't got anything that actually automatically triggers to start something or use something right now. But that's the thing I'm kind of thinking of. And just looking at all of this, I've got a goal of trying to map out my minimum 50% of my electricity usage to a device, so I can see what at least minimum 50% of it is being used for this year.
Look at this guy's put KPIs on his own house. Like, I want to have 50% of my devices tracked in Home Assistant individually. Wow, there you go. Do you get yourself a bonus? I can have an extra gadget next year if I reach my KPI.
I know, right?
Just give me an idea to talk to the wife as well. It's like, so SLAs, let's negotiate these right now.
Danny's managed service for home.
There you go, Paulus, give us a shout. So based on my kind of the two appliances, they're about maybe 5 years apart from each other. With the dishwasher, the oldest, and the washing machine, it was replaced because there was a recall for fire hazard. I think it was a couple of years ago.
Right.
Guess which one uses the most electricity out of the two?
Oh, the brand new one, probably.
That'll be the washing machine.
Yeah.
Phil?
Dishwasher.
It's the dishwasher.
Yeah. Wow.
The dishwasher uses about 1.3 kilowatts in its normal cycle, and the washing machine was about 0.5. So I could get almost like 3 cycles of a washing machine for the equivalent of a dishwasher. And it's that kind of question as well. It's like, okay, my dishwasher's like almost 10 years old. Would it be more efficient to replace it? But talking to a couple of people on Twitter as well, it doesn't seem like that's the case. And like Rohan, you said, it's actually some of them uses more. I'm like, but surely not. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's at what cost too, right? So I don't know, like a dishwasher. Excuse me, a dishwasher. Let's say it's like $400. Well, great, for that $400. How much extra power consumption is going to take for that $400 to get utilized, right? Like, what's the, I guess, not to be businessy here, but like the return on investment here is really like not great sometimes, right? It's because the cost of the device is so high.
Yeah, that's another thing of calculating all of that stuff as well. It's just like, I'm going to spend what, £400 or £500 on a new appliance, and you're saving like 1 or 2p per cycle.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating though.
The only reason why I guessed the dishwasher is I actually am monitoring my dishwasher power as well, and washing machine, and I can definitely tell, just how much the dishwasher uses per day. But interestingly, and this is why I love like the Home Assistant dashboard, now that we can see how much devices are using. So I have my Synology Nest. I put a power brick against that, put one against the dishwasher. I need to put stuff around like the TV and anything else, but the Synology uses the most power that I've got currently tracked. You could run the dishwasher on a hot cycle once a day, and the Synology would still use more energy than that.
Wow.
And I think the dishwasher, because it's probably got its own heating, I think it just takes cold water. They generally just take cold water, and then they have their own heating for the water inside it. That way you can get like hotter water than what your hot water servers can provide into the dishwasher. I believe that's how it works. At least that's how they work down under, at least, from what I believe. So that's probably why it's using up so much energy as well, right? It has to heat the water compared to just a washing machine that's just doing a cold cycle.
So say our washing machine and dishwasher both only takes a cold feed. So
interesting,
I guess, yeah. So I mean, the washing machine, you can set the temperature, but my dishwasher's so old, it's just on, off, eco, quick cycle, and literally that's it. And a delay timer, but but they both have to heat up their own water for it.
Yeah.
I was going to say, so your washing machine doesn't take hot water?
No.
Is that what you just said? Oh, that's weird.
Yeah. It only takes a cold water pipe in.
Yeah, generally they're just cold water.
I'm pretty sure mine has both. Because I have two pipes going to it and a drain. So
yeah, I have 2 pipes going to mine, but I have a feeling it used to be that you had to feed it both hot and cold, but nowadays maybe not.
Yeah, I think generally like new ones are just cold water only, and they use that. They have to heat up the water as they need.
Interesting.
It's interesting that you monitor your stuff as well then, Phil, because I think the biggest power draw for mine is I run my stuff on an Unraid server, and that's like, it takes up so much to the point where it's like, should I get a Home Assistant yellow so I could just turn it off? But then the other problem is it's all of the camera like detection stuff, and I can't think of a way around having something that runs 24/7 to analyze the images without, say, like a graphics card or something that's accelerates that too. So
well, depending on how much money you want to throw at it, you could always put it up on like a cloud, like Google Cloud or AWS or Azure or something like that, right?
But then it's not local, right? And then you got to.
It's not local. Well, it's not local, but it's your instance, right? You control what happens to it. In theory,
but it still requires an active internet connection.
Yes,
and
it needs an internet connection and stuff. But correct.
Yeah, and energy prices haven't gotten that bad that it's more cheaper to run a cloud instance than a local instance too so far.
Yeah, fair.
I'm just noticing your blinds in the background keep opening and closing. Is there like an automation going haywire for you, or?
It's a little bit. I've got SwitchBot curtains on the rods, and I've got it set. I think it's at 2 p.m. where it says like check to see what the weather's like, whether it's sunny or not.
Yeah,
and then it will open or close. And because it does battery as well, it could close it to charge up the batteries too.
So it will close the blinds to charge the battery.
Yeah, because if you think the SwitchBots are in the middle of the curtains, if it goes to the sides, it gets less light than if it was in the middle.
Is that something that you coded in, or is that standard from SwitchBot?
This is all through Home Assistant.
Wow, so you've coded Home Assistant to say, all right, my SwitchBot battery is at this level, so move the curtain into the middle to get more.
Or close the curtain.
Close the curtain to get more battery.
Based on the weather forecast, and I've got a couple of Hue outdoor sensors too, so it'll tell how bright it is outside.
Amazing. That's great.
What you can do actually, and this is something I got from Pascal on his Twitter, get a weather station if you haven't already outside integrated into Home Assistant. I got an EcoWit one, and it actually has the solar lux, so you can tell how bright it is, similar to your motion sensors. Mm-hmm. But there's also, I think, solar intensity and UV index as well. So with the solar, like with that intensity rating, you could then tell, all right, I'm actually going to get a good charge as opposed to it being really bright, but just cloudy and not going to get any charge out of this day, right? So that might be
what's that called?
It's an EcoWit weather station. And there's a Home Assistant integration pretty nicely done too. Like everything's local.
Yeah, that'll be really useful. I used to have the NetAtmo one, but the integration it was unreliable to the point where I just took it off.
Yeah. Like I've been pretty impressed. I think the weather station itself is RF, and then there's a little Wi-Fi dongle that sits inside the house. And then you can choose, all right, where do you want to push the data to? And Home Assistant just creates a custom URL that you tell the weather station to push data into, and then it just pushes that locally into your Home Assistant instance. And now I've got a dashboard in Home Assistant that has all the weather data from that weather station, like graphs and stats and stuff. And then I might push that off.
You can also build your own depending on what sensors you want and stuff like that, right? I was looking at them. They don't look too difficult, and just power it with like an ESP32 or something like that, right? And they're pretty slick. The only problem is wherever it is, you got to get power out to whatever.
Well, that's why I like these EcoWit ones. Like you just put 2 AA batteries in it, and it keeps them charged based on a little solar panel that's on the weather station. And the range on those things, like you could put them hundreds of meters away, I'm guessing, or 100 meters away.
Yeah.
And as long as it can, RF back to, because it's 433 megahertz frequency, back into your house, you're fine. So,
there's more ideas that I can add to my stuff too.
That's it, right? Like,
that's right.
That just came from, so now I've added, because we're coming into summer now. One thing we want to be conscious of is like the UV rating, and so that weather station actually will tell you what the UV rating is live at your location. So I've just added a little gauge card into my Home Assistant dashboard. It will say, depending on the UV level, is it 1, 2, 3? There'll be a gauge to say, yep, you're right, you need to put sunscreen on essentially today, otherwise you're going to get burnt to a crisp.
I noticed the SwitchBot has like a light level which does 1, 2, 3 as well. But again, because if it's open, it's to the sides, it's obviously not reading
Accurate.
what is. Yeah. Well, it's kind of slightly covered to the side of the window, so you're not going to. If you know it's bright in the middle of the window, you're not going to get. You're not going to know to close it or open it, kind of thing.
It's interesting that they wouldn't put that so that you could put it in the middle permanently, like the solar panel and that sensor on a cord or something that you could then make it remote from the main motor as well. I would have thought they would have done that, but maybe not.
Probably jerry rig it with it because it's USB cable on the back, so you could get an extension thing. But yeah,
interesting.
Good point. Because it's good. It kind of like if the unit's like it's got hooks on the unit itself, so it kind of hooks onto the back of it that faces the window. So, but yeah, it's a good idea actually. I might try that. There you go, another overcomplicating thing.
That's it. Well,
there you go.
May as well.
Anything we can do to help.
How are you going with? So you mentioned before you've got the kids and like not knowing how to turn lights off. How are you going with kids and the smart home? Have you done anything exciting, fun with them? How are they finding the smart home?
Good question. I haven't asked them. There's a couple of things that I did with. So the smart things multi-sensors has it's not vibration, but it's like I think Home Assistant calls it vibration or used accelerometer. So it did funny things like for their bedroom lights, if there's a delay in say the motion sensor picking them up or something like that, you could knock on the door and then it will pick up that and then it will turn the light on. There's a bit of problem with that when my daughter was like, she thinks she was like angry at us or something, so she shut the door and it turned the light off as well. So and then she opens it back up because when she opens the door again to say the lights turned off kind of thing, it turns back on. So I think I found a Halloween trick right there. So, so we've done that. They have. I mean, it's been similar to kind of my wife's comment. It's been very transparent to them in that they didn't have to learn anything or do anything per se. And it's only when stuff doesn't work then they say, "Oh, the bathroom light hasn't turned on again," or "It's dim," or something like that. But no, I haven't really involved them that much in actually building anything like that or anything. I think it's more for me. It's that kind of etiquette and cultural piece of like when you leave, you should turn the light off and stuff, and just thinking how maybe even a bigger picture of how technology is impacting them in those sorts of ways as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. What a world they'll grow up in, right?
Right? I know.
Hell yeah. Although any tips on, this sounds really bad, like tracking them, because they only use a tablet, but that's only at the home, but you don't know when they've left the house or come back, or sometimes the tablet, it doesn't update locations frequently and stuff.
Yeah, well, we actually had this conversation with Mark on our previous episode, and I've said that I have the nuclear football, which is my daughter's nappy bag that always goes with her. So I put a tile tracker in that bag. So, and that just uses a Bluetooth room assistant, which is running on a computer I have in the house. So, if that bag leaves, then of course I've got a Bayesian sensor that, if my wife is gone, the car's gone, but the nappy bag might be left behind, and there's a good probability that my daughter isn't at home as well. But yeah, I think Rohan suggested stitching things into backpacks. So I think, if kids don't have like devices like iPhones or phones that they're taking with them, I guess it would be pretty tricky to know if they're home or not.
Have you found any of the iBeacon ones that doesn't need something like a room assistant to do? Especially with the proxy stuff now, right, as well?
Yeah, I think maybe. I like Tile only because I'm an Android person and my wife's iPhone, so it's sort of like a cross device. And then Room Assistant can just pick it up because it's a Bluetooth beacon. So I guess it's very similar to what like a normal iBeacon would do.
I think it's still iBeacon behind the scenes, isn't it? Because I don't think it's. I know Apple created a standard. I don't think it's proprietary though. I might be wrong.
No, I think like Tile's just like a Bluetooth beacon, but Apple's iBeacon stuff is different. Somehow.
I did look at the iBeacon page, and there was only very few listed compatible devices, and even trying to get hold of them has been really hard. So it's one of those things as well. It's like, yes, it's not super expensive, but also I don't want to buy something. Well, I guess it's like your solar camera.
Yeah.
I don't want to get something and it just doesn't work. It's like, what's the point?
But that's why I like the Tile Pro and Room Assistant combination. It does that iBeacon for me. I can have multiple agents of Room Assistant running around the house, and it will pick up, this tile is closest to this thing. They don't need to be paired or anything, because it's just getting that MAC address of the Bluetooth device. But yeah, I did look at those devices for the iBeacons. I thought, there's no real advantage here for me. And then you've got to carry a device with you. Like I don't know, kids are going to be carrying that device with them everywhere.
I think put it into your backpack stuff. I think that works for us too, especially when they're going to school.
Well, yeah, school's easy, but what about on the weekend when they're not at school, right? And they're not taking their school bag with them. See, this is
when I finish with them.
This is where it gets like really, like everyone's like, oh yeah, just put a beacon in the bag, right? And then like, well, hang on, no, what are the edge cases? And then this is where the interesting stuff comes down to it. I mean, and then you'd have to do something like a Bayesian sensor, right? If the beacon's at home, and it's a school day, then they're at home. But if it's a school day and the beacon's not at home, they're probably at school. If it's a weekend and the beacon's at home, but the parents are out, then they're not home. If they have, maybe you could even do something like, if their room hasn't had motion in it for X amount of hours, then they're probably not home.
Yeah. Otherwise, none of those cases, all bets are off.
Yeah, and then I guess, well, what sort of automations would you need to know that a specific child is home?
I can give you one. So
please.
It was literally yesterday where it was only me at home, and then the grandparents brought the kids back because they were getting changed for whatever they needed to do. I was like, okay, great. I'm just going to pop to the shops to post something, to return something. I'll be back in a minute.
Guess. The house shut down because it thought no one was home.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
The mother-in-law started hearing the alarm going off. Well, not going off, but like counting down. But both of them were in, and luckily my wife came back and they just turned it off, kind of thing. But it was like, it's not. So I guess whilst kids is our kind of day-to-day stuff, we've also got extended family that come and visit and things like that. And for me, I've got things like home modes that you could set to do that sort of stuff. But again, for me, it's so automatic now. Even a push notification saying, do you want to keep the alarm on when it triggers? I don't look at my phone. I was probably driving at the time or something like that. Yeah,
I've actually gone to the point where the house won't arm itself or go into away mode without me telling it, like responding to that notification for that very reason, right? Like, if we've got mother-in-law over or my mum over and we all leave the house all of a sudden, I don't want to be driving down the freeway and all of a sudden I'm getting a phone call saying, hey, the TV's just turned off and everything's gone dark. Like, what's going on, right? But then you get the problem of, okay, I've been out shopping for 2 hours and forgot to look at my phone and, the house is disarmed. So TV's been left on, and so it's really hard.
It's a catch-22, and I think for us it works like 99%, but like you said, it's those edge cases. I think the easiest thing would be if they just even connected to our Wi-Fi kind of thing, then at least we know they're someone's at home kind of thing. But they don't. They don't need. I don't know. It's one of those things that we can do. Excuse me, could you just connect to my Wi-Fi?
Not creepy at all, right? I'm not going to be monitoring what you're doing on your phone. What you could do instead is have a binary sensor to say, is someone in the house? Like, if any motion, like wait until all motion sensors have stopped detecting someone in the house before wanting to go into away mode. So that way, if you do leave and there's still people inside the house, it doesn't then just automatically shut itself down.
I think that's what I was using the home modes for, where if I flip it from normal to guest, then it'll do the opposite of like when I leave, don't turn the alarm off automatically, ask and then turn it on. So those types of like logic. But again, it's just, I was just going around the corner. It wasn't that far and didn't think to do it. And that's when it kind of triggers.
Well, you actually have also remembering it, right?
Yeah. Do you actually have a siren on your house that would have?
Yes.
Nice. Wow. Yeah, so that's why I'm still too scared to do that. So, and this is the very reason I don't want to do that.
It's triggered it's quite funny. Well, sometimes when we're out of the house, they just pop in to grab like something, and then I don't know. They don't have the code or anything like that, but it just triggers, and then we get a notification, and you just watch the video back, and then it's like, oh, for God's sake.
Yeah, you can see the expression. Yeah, that's funny. That's why I think sometimes an old school alarm panel, like by the front door, would be better in some respects. As opposed to this fancy tablet on a wall that you need to go and disarm for.
We actually use the Ring system that does have an alarm panel. We just haven't given them the code. So
gotcha. Don't trust them that much. Yeah. You trust them to be on your Wi-Fi, but not to give them the security code. See how it works.
Look after the kids, and to watch your kids.
The solution I was thinking of around that was using facial recognition, because if you get it is the the in-laws or your parents and stuff like that, then it would be able to do that. But I found it quite difficult, depending on the position of the cameras, because they're normally either quite high so you can see the room in the corner. It's not necessarily face level, and it just makes it harder to detect. And I literally got to the point of just turning off, because I was using something called Double Take, and it all hooks into the frigate stuff and things like that. But the reliability in it was so bad, and I think I'm appreciating the fact that it needs the positioning of the cameras in a certain way to pick people's faces up a lot better. So it's that making it stupidly complex for something that you could just stick a button on, but that's the game where I'm looking towards, kind of thing.
How slow would that be also to do that facial recognition? I'm just wondering, let's say you've got it on a Ring doorbell, right? Someone walks up to the door, the video gets processed, finds out, okay, yes, it's 99% probability it's this person. How long would that take? Would that be a minute or 30 seconds, do you think?
It's pretty quick. I know the frigate stuff for object detection, I think it's set to 10 seconds or less, otherwise it times out by default. And on the on Deep Stack, it's fairly similar. In terms of the facial stuff, I can't remember how long that took, but all of these things are if you've got one of those Core AI USB sticks, it accelerates that so well. Or if you've got an NVIDIA graphics card, they're pretty quick at recognizing those stuff. So I don't think we're talking minutes here. It's going to be seconds. So, and then now it's down to how well you train your kind of models and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, it's hey, mother-in-law, I need 153 pictures of you.
Just stand here. Okay, now turn this way.
Yeah. So that's where it starts. Not always working out, right? But
but we went from can you please connect to my Wi-Fi to can I take 150 shots of you? Thanks.
Well, the other thing too is, I don't know if you have a smart door lock or something like that, and or if they have their own code to that, right? So you can also use that as a mode of setting your house to a specific thing, and something where you manually turn it off later, right? So because you don't necessarily know when they leave, but at the same time, so let's say they go 1, 2, 3, 4. Hey, you know what? That's mom's code. Great, I know mom's here. And then based on that, then Home Assistant sets itself to, guest mode or whatever it is, right? And then, but like you said, then it's on you to turn it off.
I have exactly that automation. Yeah.
I don't have any locks or anything like that at mine, so.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. If you get 50% of your energy tracked, you might be able to buy that for Christmas.
That's right.
End of year bonus.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Danny, thank you so much for today. This has been a great conversation. We will have links to your socials in the show notes. And we'll try and chuck that water level sensor. If you can send me that link, we'll put it in the show notes as well. That'd be great. But thank you so much for taking the time for us.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Cheers.
If you want to share your Home Assistant journey or come on as a guest, reach out to us at feedback@hasspodcast.io. That's HASS podcast.io.
The Home Assistant Podcast is hosted by Phil Hawthorne and myself, Rohan Karamandi. For links to topics we discussed today, check out our show notes on haspodcast.io.